Hello, learners. In this video, we will be talking about the analysis on the story entitled Good Country People by Flannery O'Connor. Now, to my students, we already have discussed the summary of this story in our class in person. So now we will go on with the analysis. We will be talking about the characters, the characterization, the kind of plot, point of view, elements of plot, conflict, setting, symbolism, irony, and theme in the story. Let us start with the characters and the characterization. It is apparent in the story that there are four characters that are involved in the story. We have our main character who is Hulga or Joy. The second one, we have the Bible salesman, or according to him in the first part of the story, he is Manly Pointer. But later on, it was revealed that it was not his actual name. Therefore, throughout the story, we do not know what his real identity is. And then the third, we have Mrs. Hopewell. And then fourth, we have Mrs. Freeman. All right. Hulga, according to the description in the story, is 32 years old and she has degree. She has a degree in doctorate. She's highly educated, and in the physical, she is a large blonde girl with an artificial leg. And then Manly Pointer, or the Bible salesman, is also a tall person. As we can describe, he is deceiving. It was very apparent in the story. And then the third, we have Mrs. Hopewell. Mrs. Hopewell is divorced from her husband for a long time. That's why she was looking for someone to help her at her home. And she was able to choose the family of Mrs. Freeman because, according to Mrs. Hopewell, the family of Mrs. Freeman were good country people. And when she referred to good country people, it refers to people who are kind, who are honest, who are reliable, responsible, and all of the possible things that a certain person has. So those are the attributes of the individuals that Mrs. Hopewell referred to in the term good country people. And then the fourth, we have Mrs. Freeman. Mrs. Freeman has a forward expression. She doesn't want to feel that she is left behind. So if Mrs. Hopewell would say something, she would always say, "Yes, I already know that." That's the attitude of Mrs. Freeman. All right. When we try to characterize them, we can say that Hulga, or Joy, has this facade of being very strong. She's very strong and she doesn't really talk. In fact, their relationship with her mother has a very different kind of setup. She doesn't really agree with the perspectives of her mother. And her mother also doesn't very much agree with her perspectives. That is why every day when Mrs. Freeman would go there to the house of Mrs. Hopewell, Hulga would just simply stay at a distance and she would just listen to their gossip, to their random talks, or sometimes she would just close the door. That's how Hulga is being described in the story. But later on, there was there was a shift in the characterization of Hulga. From being a very strong personality, she became vulnerable, especially when she has the emotional involvement with the Bible salesman in the later portion of the story. We can really see how vulnerable she was. And it was with the skill of the Bible salesman that she was able to show that kind of vulnerability of being that kind of fragile person. All right. Let us see the plot, the kind of plot now. The kind of plot in the story is linear plot. When we say linear, it's chronological. So in this story, it is chronological because we were told from the beginning of the story and we were able to see what happened next and the following sequence of the story. It started with it started with the usual routine of Mrs. Freeman, Mrs. Hopewell, Hulga, and then it continued or progressed to the appearance of the Bible salesman trying to sell Bible to Mrs. Hopewell. And so it progressed into the connection and the conversation between Hulga and the Bible salesman until suddenly it reached to that sweet moment between Hulga and the Bible salesman. And until it ended with Hulga being left crying, she was left by the Bible salesman. So it was a straight line storytelling. That's why the kind of plot here is linear plot. Now we move on to the point of view. For the point of view, we have here a third person omniscient. Third person omniscient in a sense that we can go into the thoughts, opinions, and feelings of Hulga and Mrs. Hopewell. All right. Next, we proceed to the elements of plot. So, under the elements of plot, we have exposition, conflict, climax, and denouement. Let us now trace the elements of plot of this story. So it's very much important to identify first the conflict. And aside from that, once we identify the main conflict in the story, it will be easier for us to trace the beginning or the cause of that certain conflict. Now, let us first begin with the conflict before we trace it backward to the exposition. The main conflict of the story is that when Pointer or the Bible salesman showed his true color to Hulga. That's when the conflict began. If you can look at the story, Hulga was very shocked when when the Bible salesman showed his true color, when he tried to show her rather, the whiskey and the cards, and he even invited Hulga to drink whiskey. So Hulga was very surprised because the image or the facade that the Bible salesman has is that he is religious and he would always bring Bible, and then he would always say we need the word of God, or we do not know when we need the word of God. And then suddenly she sees now that he is doing some vices. And he did not stop. He did not even hesitate. So Hulga was very shocked. That's when the conflict started. And he did not even return the artificial leg. That's also what they have been arguing about during their conversation, during their private moment. So that's where the conflict began. Now, if we now trace it backward, because if we consider the conflict as the effect, we now trace it back. What was the cause of that conflict? That's our exposition. If we trace it back, the exposition or the cause of that certain conflict is that when Pointer or the Bible salesman sold Bible to the house of Mrs. Hopewell, and then when he also tried to seduce Hulga. And so Hulga, we cannot really say fall in love because falling in love is quite deeper. So we can just say Hulga had the emotional involvement. It's not even attachment because it happened in a very short period of time. It was during just that day in their conversation. So we cannot have that kind of long duration. That's why we cannot say attachment or we cannot say falling in love. It was just emotional involvement at that moment, especially for the case of Hulga. It was her first time to be kissed by a man, so her reaction was quite different. All right, so that is the exposition. It began when Pointer, or the Bible salesman, went to the house of Mrs. Hopewell to sell Bible, and then he tried to seduce Hulga, and so Hulga had the emotional involvement and emotional investment to the Bible salesman. Because if that did not happen, then there would be no conflict of Hulga actually seeing the true color of the Bible salesman. So we have now established the exposition and we also have established the conflict. Moving forward to the climax. The climax of the story is when Pointer did not return the artificial leg to Hulga. He did not return it. No matter how much Hulga cried or screamed or pleaded him to return the artificial leg to her, he did not do that. He was trying to make Hulga feel that she was actually vulnerable. He was trying to make Hulga feel that what facade she has been showing is not true. He was trying to make her feel that she must depend on him. It was verbally stated by the Bible salesman that no, you don't need the artificial leg. I'm here. I'm here. That's his that is his argument. Now from the climax, it now leaves us to progress to the denoma. How did Hulga process the situation? She was being betrayed. She found out that she was lied to. She found out that everything that Pointer or the Bible salesman said and did were all just a lie and were all just scripts. So it leads us to the denoma that Hulga was trying to process these things. All right? From the climax that Pointer did not return the artificial leg, Pointer then left Hulga. It's our denoma. It's how Pointer tried to solve the decision that he had made. He just simply left her. He just simply left her. So Hulga was left being betrayed and maybe ashamed because of what happened, especially with the kissing scene that they had when Hulga initiated in the next series of kissing because she was more emotionally involved with the Bible salesman. Next, we proceed to the conflict. For the conflict, we have man versus man. This is an external conflict. We can see the man versus man here with Pointer or the Bible salesman versus Hulga. They were in argument. In fact, their arguments or their opposition started even when even during the early appearance of the Bible salesman. So from the first appearance of the Bible salesman, Hulga already had her judgments, or especially that she had walls, she had trust issues. She was already suspicious of the person. So it's as if she was trying to be rude to this person already. And on the other hand, Pointer knew that that was the kind of reaction Hulga has. So he was also trying to make his tactic or strategy in order to confront that kind of attitude. So from the beginning, the strategy that Pointer did was something that is not obvious. He did not show his true emotions at first. He tried to win her heart first. He tried to win her trust. That was his strategy. So it is the man versus man, or the external conflict that we have in the story. And then the other arguments or the conflict that they had, they were still in conflict, but now it's a different conflict because this is no longer having the facade. We cannot already see the strong Hulga here. We can see the vulnerable Hulga, especially when her artificial leg was removed from her. And then we also do not anymore see the hypocrisy of Pointer, or the Bible salesman, because he already confessed to Hulga that he just sells Bible, but he is not really religious. And he is also an atheist. He doesn't believe in anything. And he also confessed that he has been lying for the past how many years. He would just tell stories. He would just make up stories in order for people to believe in him. All right. So the conflict between Hulga and Pointer was consistent throughout the story, from the first appearance of Pointer and also to the last appearance that he had in the story. Therefore, we have an external conflict, or man versus man, in the story Good Country People. Next, we have the setting. For the setting, this happened at the house of Mrs. Hopewell. It was in the earlier version of the story, and then in the later portion, it happened in the barn, because when the conversation between the two of them were getting sweeter, the Bible salesman tried to tried to ask Hulga if they can go somewhere private. And because Hulga was already emotionally invested in the conversation, she said, we can talk at the barn. So they had their solo moments there. They had their sweet talk there, which eventually led to a heartbreaking concluding conversation for Hulga. All right, so that's the setting. Next, we have the symbols. So, symbols. For the symbol, we can identify the first symbol is the artificial leg of Hulga. And Hulga could also symbolize women, or not just simply women, people who are who are helpless. All right. The artificial leg symbolizes the defense mechanism of Hulga, because physically Hulga was already weak. She has an incomplete feet, or she has incomplete feet. So, just to appear like she is not weak, she wore the artificial leg. And for the longest time, also, she was not involved in any man for any romantic relationship. She appeared to be strong. So physically, when we try to look at Hulga, who was wearing an artificial leg, we would see that this woman is normal. This is not a weak woman. This is a very strong woman because she has complete legs like that. So it's the defense mechanism of Hulga. Hulga was trying to hide all of the things that are her weaknesses. That's why her attack, or her approach to her mother and to other people, is that she appears to be very strict. She appears to have very strong walls, that she would not believe in anything at all, not even in God. So what more with people? She doesn't believe in any people. She has this philosophy that people or things could always just go wrong. That is how Hulga thinks. Now, that defense mechanism was destroyed by one person, and that is the Bible salesman. That is why it's very intriguing that from the early conversations with Hulga, Pointer was already asking the curiosity, from which portion of your leg is the connection of the artificial leg? He was already curious at first. So it already symbolizes that aside from the literal meaning, literal image about the artificial leg, the Bible salesman was already curious about what was the weakness of this woman. Because this woman appears to talk very strong. She appears to be someone not easily convinced. So it was a challenge for the Bible salesman. That's why he already injected the curiosity. And since Hulga, at that early portion of their conversation, was not yet emotionally involved, she was angry. She was angry about the curiosity of Pointer, as if, why should you ask that? And then he defended himself that it was nothing negative. He had no he had no bad intention. He was just trying to say that Hulga was strong, which of course, very obvious that it was just his strategy in order to get into the answer of that. And so he was able to succeed because by sugarcoating his words, Hulga was then hooked, and Hulga even believed in the idea of love. She even went to that portion of thinking of eloping with this man. She she went to that portion of her thinking. So we can say that the Bible salesman was very skillful in sugarcoating things. Now, aside from it is a defense mechanism of Hulga, it can also symbolize the defense mechanism of women in general. So women in general will always have something to use as their front in order to appear strong, and so that they can hide their vulnerability. They can hide whatever they think would make them be destroyed by the external forces. Aside from that, it can also symbolize the defense mechanism of people in general who are helpless, who are in need of help. So they are trying to appear that as if everything is normal, that they should not be sympathized with. So these groups of individuals can vary. It depends on the situation, whatever people we're talking about, but it's the defense mechanism. So that is the first symbol. Now, the removal, the removal of the defense mechanism symbolizes the falling in love or the emotional involvement of Hulga and dependency to the Bible salesman. When the artificial leg was removed physically, it's like Hulga must depend on the Bible salesman. In fact, she also felt that she surrendered herself to this man because she even she even reached the thinking of running away with this person. So the submissiveness, the submission to that certain person. And that can also represent women in general. Women in general, when they are emotionally involved with the man, or deeper, when they are in love with the man, they would submit to the man and they would show the man everything that she has been hiding for so long, her flaws, her weaknesses, her sorrow, her pain, her wounds, these things that she has been hiding for so long. Suddenly, she is ready to show it, to a person that she trusts. So that removal can symbolize the falling in love or the emotional involvement of Hulga and of women in general. Now, since we have also mentioned group of people who can be weak or who can be vulnerable, the removal of the artificial leg can also symbolize that if something attracted them or if something hooked them that made them submit to those individuals, then that's what the removal of the artificial leg symbolizes. That's it. Next, we move on to the irony. So, the irony in the story, we shall be determining three ironies. First, the verbal irony. Second, the dramatic irony. And third, the situational irony. For the verbal irony, it is what the characters said versus what they actually meant. And then the second, dramatic irony, it's what the readers know versus what the characters know. And for the third irony, the situational irony, it's what the readers expect to happen versus what actually happened in the story. All right, for the verbal irony, we have here the statements from Pointer or from the Bible salesman. He said, I didn't mean you no harm. I only, I only meant you're so brave and all. And I guess God takes care of you. He said this during their conversation when he first immediately asked about the artificial leg connection and when Hulga was mad at him. So this is a verbal irony because we now know that he did not mean that. Because his intention was really to know how weak Hulga can be. He really wanted to see how Hulga would suffer without that artificial leg. Therefore, that statement, I didn't mean you no harm, is an irony. He didn't mean it. He really meant to harm Hulga, just like what happened in the story. And when he said, I only think you're brave and all, he also did not mean it. Because at the back of his mind, he was really examining things of to what point does the bravery of this woman or does the strength of this woman would break down. And also when he said in the same line that I think God takes care of you, it's also a verbal irony because the intention was not like that. The intention was not like that. He verbally said already to Hulga that he also doesn't believe in anything. Therefore, when he said this, that I guess God takes care of you, that's a verbal irony already. That's a verbal irony. He doesn't intend what he just said. And the third verbal irony we have here is when the Bible salesman said, you're just playing with me for a sucker. This is a verbal irony because a person who would say such thing must be really emotionally involved to the other person that he is asking for an assurance. Now, Pointer is not actually looking for an assurance. He just wants Hulga to submit to him. Therefore, when he said this, you're just playing me for a sucker, that should not actually be coming from him. That should actually be said by Hulga herself because that's the reality. So, Pointer was trying to make himself appear sympathetic. So, it's considered a verbal irony. And then, The dramatic irony, the second kind of irony that we will discover is the dramatic irony. The dramatic irony here is that the readers know that Hulga and Pointer kissed and argued, but Mrs. Hopewell and Mrs. Freeman did not know it. That's the first. Since they were in the barn, they were they were alone. No one saw them. In fact, that was their intention, to be alone, to have private moment. Therefore, everything happened there was not known to the other characters, but the readers know exactly what happened. The readers exactly know how many times they kissed, who initiated the kiss, and the readers also know how each of them confessed. Olga confessed that she was not a teenager anymore, that she was 30 years old. And then on the other hand, Pointer also confessed that he was actually not a religious person. But all of these things were not known to the other characters, Mrs. Hopewell and Mrs. Freeman. So all they thought was this did not happen. Second, the readers knew how the Bible salesman fooled Mrs. Hopewell, Mrs. Freeman, and especially Hulga. And the readers also know how much he has hurt Hulga, but the other characters did not know it. All right. And then the third, the readers now knew how deceiving the Bible salesman was. But Mrs. Hopewell and Mrs. Freeman did not know. In fact, they still believed that he was a very good man, a simple man, and a member of the good country people that Mrs. Hopewell was trying to always refer to. Those are the dramatic ironies for this story. And then for the third kind of irony, the situational irony here, what the readers expect versus what actually happened, is that Pointer was expected to be honest and good, but turns out evil and liar. With the first appearance of Pointer having that kind of ambience, being innocent, he sounded innocent. He also told stories about innocence and struggles, and he also mentioned about God, Bible. He brought Bible with him. The readers might expect or has the impression have the impression that this person could be a very good person and part of the good country people. But what actually happened was that he was the opposite. He was a liar. He was deceiving everyone around him. And who knows the real identity of this person, because according to him, he doesn't stay long in any place that he went to. All right. And then next, the situational irony is that during the private moment, during the sweet talk of Hulga and Pointer, the readers might expect that this could lead to something serious based on the dialogues, on the sugar coating of the Bible salesman, or with the sweet statements that he said. This could lead to something else, especially that Hulga, being that serious person, being that mature person who was now actually opening herself up to him, this could lead to something serious. But then later on, it was not serious at all. She was just being played by Pointer. And that's a very sad scenario. To sum it up, we can say that the story, Good Country People, is a reflection of the reality of the society that we are in, no matter what time it is right now, what year, or no matter where we are right now. We can always see a manly pointer around us. We can see a Hulga around us. We can see a Mrs. Hopewell, a Mrs. Freeman. So when we say that we can always see a Bible salesman around us, like Pointer, there can be people who appears to be something very good, not specifically religious, but someone who appears to be very reliable, very credible, very good in everything based on what he says, based on what we see. But in reality, we might be shocked with the crookedness of his reality. We can also have Hulga around us, a person, not necessarily woman, but a person who appears to be very strong, but in reality, she might be the weakest person. She was just trying to hide the vulnerability that she has. She can be around any one of us. We can also see Mrs. Hopewell, a person who is very optimistic, especially with her philosophy that we must always see beautiful things in everything around us so that it can become beautiful. She also has the philosophy that everyone has his or her different opinion and that we cannot control it. We can see people like that around us, Mrs. Hopewell. And we can also see people like Mrs. Freeman, who would always make herself more knowledgeable than you are, who doesn't accept defeat. That if you say something, she would always say, ah, I already know that. That's Mrs. Freeman. So we can see that the story is revolved around reality versus appearance. Therefore, we can conclude with the theme with the with these two themes. First, never trust a stranger easily. Look at what happened with Mrs. Hopewell and Hulga. Well, for Mrs. Hopewell, there was not much damage done to her because she was just trying to be friendly, she was just trying to be accommodating and kind because according to her, I cannot just be rude to this person no matter how much I want him to leave. But she was just trying to be nice to him. But the damage to Hulga was deeper because she submitted herself. She has given a portion of herself and she was given a false hope. She trusted this person who was actually a stranger. Therefore, our team could be never trust a stranger easily. And second is don't always believe in what you see. So in the story, it's like Mrs. Hopewell and Hulga believed in what they have seen. They believed in the appearance of the Bible salesman just because he was bringing Bible with him, just because he was being insistent of talking about the word of God, of of always having the presence of God, then they thought that this might be a person who belongs to good country people. But in reality, he was the opposite. So it's important to not always believe in everything that you see because who knows, it might be the opposite. All right, that ends our discussion for the analysis of the story Good Country People by Flannery O'Connor. If you have other inputs about the analysis, please comment down below. Or if you have any comments, suggestions, please comment down below as well.